Morning, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on here with me today. I'm very excited to chat. I would love for you to introduce yourself for us to kick off.
I am Paul McCormick. I'm a realtor here with Gibson, Sotheby's International Realty based out of the Chatham office. And I work full time with my mother, Chris, my wife, Molly, and a few other great agents out of the Harwichport and Chatham office.
That's awesome. And Paul and I admittedly tried to schedule this summer. Paul had a very incredible sale. We talked about that. We talked about the Cape market. We said we were going to get on here and do a podcast, and we both had a baby within like 2 weeks of each other. And Paul, it was his first baby. I looked back, actually emailed me, my wife's going into labor. I can shoot in 2 days. And I was like, no, you can't. So here we are a couple months later. But both of us sort of maybe sleeping. I don't know. Are you sleeping?
It's getting better. We're sleep training now. But it's going well. And
Good.
certainly glad I didn't do it last July.
I know, I know. Well, yes. So I am really happy to have you here today. And what we wanted to kind of talk about, anyone that's listening, we're going to kind of just talk through the Cape market, the intricacies of the Cape market, but also just second home market in general. Paul and I talked through the seasonality of the market and things that would just be interesting for anyone that owns property on the Cape, would like to own property on the Cape, any agents in terms of that you're looking for clients, things like that. And then buyer agency obviously is such a hot topic right now. And I think that buyer agency in second home markets where people aren't necessarily living and may be potentially purchasing something sight unseen or just using their buyer agent for a lot more in that regard in terms of viewing property. So I wanted to walk through how you approach that. So those are kind of our three big things. So could you start with just giving us a general sense of the general seasonal sense of the Cape Cod market, like the seasonality?
Yeah, it's important because there are two markets on the Cape. It's the spring market and it's the fall. And spring starts right around Valentine's Day, right? So mid-February, and it lasts till about Memorial Day. Maybe it goes a little bit longer. But the spring markets, I feel even more robust than the fall. The spring is all about preparing for summer of that year. And so you have an awful lot of buyers who they want to get ready earlier. A lot of people think, spring market is April, May. It's really February, March, because they've got that upcoming summer in their mind. They want to jump on the right property, make it their own. So take those few months and be ready for that coming summer. So by Memorial Day, they've bought the property. They're making their changes and renovations to it, and then enjoy it. Um,
Yeah.
so that starts a little bit earlier. It also tends to be more higher end properties sell in spring. Basically anything 3 or 4 million or higher, that 9 out of 10 times that sells in the spring rather than the fall. And a lot of that is because people are coming up from their vacation properties or elsewhere. They're not full time on the Cape. They've got that happy mood, summer's coming in mind. They're going to look to purchase those. When you look at the fall market, that starts mid-August, Labor Day, and that carries till about December 1. Those are people who, those type of buyers in that fall market, chances are they've enjoyed a summer rental earlier in the year. So they've got that vibe going, let's now own our Cape property. And so they're coming off of that rental in that good mood, and they're looking to jump on something that comes on the market after a seller has enjoyed typically one last summer is what we deal with on the Cape. And so they jump on that. They're okay with that purchase. They want to make their changes to it. Chances are they may rent it out a few weeks themselves and also with enjoying it. And then, they'll carry it through the winter. That higher end market, they've enjoyed summer. They're not purchasing a property, chances are in the fall, to just hold it all winter to next summer. So
Sure.
higher end market is certainly in the spring.
And talk to me about the activity of the summer market, because that's something I was surprised by initially.
Summer market's fun. You have a lot of buyers who are, again, locked into a great rental or a summer home that they already own. So they're enjoying it. Everyone's in a good mood here on the Cape. You have a lot of sellers who they're enjoying that summer home that they've owned for years. And you have these new, typically we end up dealing with a lot of renters who are curious about the Cape. Maybe it's their first time here. And so you have those up calls, you have those walk-ins to the office, and you have these buyers who inquire who they just want to learn more about where they're staying. It's a great opportunity though to meet a phenomenal buyer. And I've worked with several people who they visit the Cape once and they buy property here.
Mhm.
We may think you want to visit a few more times, but they're sold. So it's a good buyer to capture.
Yeah, and it's busy. I mean, I remember we did an acquisition years ago of the 6 offices on the Cape, and I was shocked at how busy the summer was. And it might be, to your point, people that are just curious, but it's still, there's a lot of movement and like Boston and Metro Boston, a lot of people, it's more, I think, by and large, obviously things are always moving, but the summer gets quiet. People go away, they pause their search. Not a lot of people putting the house on the market at that point. A lot of people want to be closing by the time the school year starts. So that's sort of when the lull happens. A little bit. To be honest, the market's been so crazy the last few years. There's been no lull. But when we first did the Cape, I was shocked just the general activity. But it's nice. It's a buzz. It's something to think about. I think as a seller, if I was a seller on the Cape, I would be thinking about how many people are like actually poking around, which leads to my next question, or the next topic that we want to touch on. You talked about interviewing as a buyer agent. And with all the discussions I've had recently around buyer agency, I feel like buyer agency is so critical everywhere. And I think almost the conversation around it is really good because it's making us articulate the value of having that representation more than ever. But I think that it's such a unique need in a second home market where you do not live, where you cannot just pop into all the open houses during the week and the weekend, whenever. Just having that person that you really trust. So can you walk us through, you mentioned that you have done interviews for a buyer agency. What if someone's using you as a buyer agent on Cape Cod, what does that look like?
Well, you bring up a good point because we have, certainly there are many buyers who are still inside the state of Massachusetts. They're Metro West, they're South Shore, and they'll scoot down and they'll meet to go take a look at a property during the week, or we'll make an itinerary for the weekend. But there's an awful lot of buyers who are out of state. We have New York, we have Connecticut, we have California, we have Florida, and it's a little bit harder for them. We do always encourage them to scoot here if they can, take a look at a property. But there's an awful lot of virtual showings, and I've done quite a handful of remote purchases where they have seen it through video and maybe a FaceTime, but they have bought it completely physically unseen. And so, part of that is explaining the value that we bring as boots on the ground professionals to represent them on their behalf. And, it's something that I've begun to touch more on and develop more. you know, I take the time to interview and vet a buyer, not necessarily if they're real or not. Everyone's excited about the potential of a purchase on Cape Cod, but you want to get to know them better. You want to and they should know you better too. Oftentimes, certainly in the beginning of my career, you meet a buyer, you're excited. They talk about, 123 Main Street, let's go see it. And we just go off to the races. And, that's an exciting opportunity, but it's really important to get a firm sense of what they're looking for and make sure that they're working with the right agent too. A lot of that comes with experience but also with a great brokerage. And, we have this phenomenal, toolkit, if you will, with Gibson, not only our franchise, but the brand Sotheby's as a whole. And I remember early on, I never really touched on that. I kind of kept it to myself. I thought, well, I don't really need to share that. But clients are interested, buyers are interested in knowing that. We have a phenomenal, armory of tools and, assets and assistance and, just multiple things that, help us with buy power, basically.
Mhm.
But a lot of that also comes with, working with someone on Cape Cod and the islands who grew up here. They know the market like the back of their hand. They can speak to these neighborhoods. A property comes on the market, the buyer reaches out. What do you think about this one? Chances are one of us down here at Gibson Sotheby's has been on that street several times. I have a lot of great colleagues here, and they've all grown up here. And so, to make sure that a buyer is matched with a phenomenal buyer's agent who's going to take the time to interview, make sure they know what they're looking for, and also have confidence in an agent who's working remotely for
Mhm.
you. You're trusting someone to run around and FaceTime and, vet out properties for you, give a candid opinion if this could be a good fit for you and or your family, what the value is, what the neighborhood looks like. And so, taking that time to make sure it's a good fit with that buyer And also, you know, show them that they shouldn't work with anyone else. You want them to feel confident that the person that they're connected with on Cape Cod has their back. And, I'm not afraid to tell a buyer, you shouldn't buy this because I just don't think it's a great fit. And here's why.
Mhm. I love that. And having their back is a huge thing. I think to touch on a couple things you just said, the network having a huge impact on our ability to really service buyers, sellers. I think one thing that's overlooked in every market in terms of having representation and having a professional in the field that knows what they're doing, the way that the world is, and it's not getting better, I'll say that, at least in the foreseeable future, in terms of fraud, in terms of like just terrible things that are going on, it's really sad. There's a lot of things that I think I probably have a little bit of, and I'm a little bit off script here, but I was thinking this as you were saying it, is I have almost a cynical view because I see all of the company and like everything that pops up. But the network is an incredible tool to reach out and get clarity for someone, for a client. So it's like, I was just thinking about my in-laws, sadly, had booked something. They go every year. They're, it might be stereotypical, but they're really savvy. They're really intelligent people. They're in their 70s. They did everything right. But there's a lot of people preying on people that are online trying to book things. And they booked something in Naples a year ago. And we luckily were able to catch it. And I was able to call somebody in that area and just say, they went on a very popular vacation rental website and it was completely fraudulent. And they only found out through the golf community within there that realized, whoa, this owner did not, rent this unit. And they had taken old photos. And it's so hard to navigate, even for us being in the industry. If you have a contact, which we always do, you can call and just say, hey, can you look into this for me? Because you're in that area, because we've seen on Cape Cod and in the islands, there was a big land issue going on where people were listing land on credible sites on the internet, right? Throwing it up there. Because when you think about land, you're just walking the land. They didn't have any contact with the owner. They were walking buyers around. It was a terrifying thing. But if you had someone that you trust in that area, you would do your due diligence on that immediately and say, this is not right. Something's off here. That's the importance of having that buyer agency across the board, but definitely in a second home market where you are not there and you really need somebody who's going to poke and push into things, not out of fear, but there's so many intricacies to watch out for. And when you don't live in that town, it's a little unnerving to not have somebody on your side, like you said, to have your back, to look into every little thing and be sure that everything's going to go right for you. So I think it's so important. And I love that you do those interviews. Is there anything else you want to add to that piece?
Just the fact that, you have to make sure that it's a good fit. It could be the client that's been referred to you by another agent. It could be someone that you've met off the street, someone who's called the office. But, agents today there's a lot of agents who are thinking that, with the lack of inventory, sometimes depending on the area, the lack of buyers, they got to grab everything and do as much as they can. And it ends up not being the best service to the client. And you have to make sure that you're really matched in the right way, because as an agent, you're investing your time on that person as well. You're hitting the road. I mean, I get in the car, I fly over the Cape, depending on where they need to look at property that's come on. And someone who might be looking in Chatham ends up looking in Osterville. So if you're going to take that time and value that client, you got to make sure that they feel comfortable and confident with who they're working with. They shouldn't have a second of doubt of who their person is on the Cape.
I love that. Yeah. Can you talk to me about the current state of the Cape market?
Hmm.
Pricing over the last few years. Obviously, things have gone crazy since COVID, like mostly everywhere else in the country. Inventory remains really tight. Can you just walk us through what that's looked like over the last couple of years, what you're seeing now and what you see going forward?
Inventory continues to be low. Several years ago, prior to COVID, there was anywhere between 4,000 and 5,000 properties on the market for sale on Cape and Islands MLS. Today, it's 559. So it continues to be low. However, we're beginning to see an uptick for the spring market. Last year, in 2023, people were a little hesitant. I'd say June, July, and towards the end of the year, they were watching the rates. They weren't sure what was happening. We had a presidential election coming up now this year in 2024, and people kind of pumped the brakes a little bit. We're actually seeing a bit of a difference now. More properties have come on just recently, and we're expecting more into March and April. So it certainly is picking up. The Cape tends to be less susceptible to market change. There's a huge driver to want a Cape house because there's a lot of options when owning it. You can enjoy it yourself, and you can certainly rent it out as an investment property. And it's a great place to park money. And we often deal with a lot of savvy buyers who they can rely on the values of Cape Cod to invest in. Also, you know, the COVID market helped a lot of the values. I think that a lot of the Cape was undervalued for many years. COVID market certainly expedited that and brought those numbers up. And now we're seeing a lot more properties selling really what they should be selling for.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think I'd love to close it out, sort of pivot from there and selling what they should be selling for. Rentals, you just talked about investing in that market. I know we've seen obviously a huge increase in rentals, specifically on Cape Cod, because everywhere during the pandemic saw domestic increase in rentals because people weren't able to travel globally. People weren't really flying. For the rental market still remains extremely strong, but from what we're seeing in terms of the rental inventory that we manage, rentals are back to pre-pandemic, I would say, which is ultimately a good thing. People might think we like this frenzy in any type of piece of the market. We don't. I think that this normalization is actually good in terms of investors because it's hard to tell someone like this might look really good right now, right? The people that bought in 2020, 2021, they had two really good summers, and you're going to have great summers, but it's right now it's more steady. You're not booking the whole summer by February. Can you walk through it, like to your knowledge, if you're advising an investor, someone that does want to do, I know a lot of people have dreams of having that rental property that, they could maybe rent out majority of the weeks in the summer until it's paid off when they have a family and things like that. So walk me through if someone approached you on that right now and what the rental market looks like.
And the rental market, I mean, it had a phenomenal uptick in COVID 2021, 2022, and a bit of 2020 for sure. Huge, huge uptick. I mean, things were being rented for much more than they normally would. At the time, we had an $8.5 million property on the market, and someone wanted 1 month for 300,000 just to get to Cape Cod and be a little bit more isolated. That helped carry the rental market a bit, so that was a good thing. It pumped up those numbers as well. Certainly those larger homes that were renting for less money. But what we're seeing today is, you can still get phenomenal rent. Every property on Cape Cod can be a rental property for the most part. You don't have to be walk to beach, but you can invest in a property on Cape Cod and put it on the rental market. And to your point, a buyer can list it in the 8 to 10 week, what we call the prime season. They can even go into the shoulder season, which is a little bit of June, a little bit of September. And then they can use it in May, they can use it in October. And we see a lot of that. And sometimes they end up, reserving a couple weeks in July if they really want to use it for themselves, for their family. But they are still investing in rental properties on Cape Cod. And they're still turning a profit, even when owning them for a brief period. One nice thing that we've seen on Cape Cod too is, or excuse me, what we haven't seen on Cape Cod is a lot of people thought during the COVID market that all these people jumping on homes as fast as they could because they were now working from home. They weren't on the red line into the city. And so now that COVID subsided, people are headed back into the city. Where was that influx of new inventory that just sold? These homes have not come back on the market. And I think that's really telling to the rental market because they came to the Cape quickly in the COVID pandemic. They jumped on property. A lot of them have gone back into the city for work, but these homes have not come back on the market. They're able to book rental weeks and they're holding them. And it ended up being a phenomenal investment. So even if they have to go back to work physically, they can still keep this phenomenal investment that they worked on.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, like I said, it's steady. I think that the
Yeah.
issue with inventory is just causing everything to be that sort of soft landing that people have predicted for a long time. As our inventory remains tight on every front, rentals, sales across the board.
What's great today is, because that frenzy has subsided, it's a great opportunity to take time and buy a property on Cape Cod or certainly off Cape outside of Boston. You have an opportunity to visit a house on a weekend and You don't have to have a 15-minute window with a mask on and booties and make that huge decision. You can come back the next day. You can bring family. You have a little bit more wiggle room to vet out and make sure that you're making the right investment. So it's a much more comfortable market now.
I'm curious what you're most excited about right now going forward in this real estate market on Cape
Well,
Cod.
we have several new properties coming on the market, which is exciting. And they're kind of spread out throughout the Cape, and we're really looking forward to a more of a robust spring market. People are excited again. The fear or the unknown of last year with rates has certainly subsided, and so people have more confidence that they're getting more in gear, and they're excited to see what's coming on the market. So
And
it's
you're confident that there's going to be a little bit more inventory.
I do. I think we're going to have quite an uptick here. And I think that's going to carry us into the summer. Everyone has an opinion on rates. I do see that they may likely tick down. I don't think anyone should hold their breath for something dramatic, but I think that they're going to tick. And if they tick just enough for the right person, you're going to see quite an influx on Cape Cod again.
Yeah.
So don't wait to buy the Cape House. I
No.
mean, they will always be valuable here. Your investment will always turn a profit, and whenever you have the opportunity to invest down here, absolutely take advantage, but work with the right agent.
Yes. Yeah. I think the normalization with everything, with rentals, in a way, people get excited when things are so high, but they also are like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Same
Yeah.
with the interest rates. When things started to tick up, it was where are they going to go? And now it's just sort of everything's evening out. People are realizing I'm paying a lot more on my credit card bills and interest. I'm paying a lot more on my student loans and interest. Let's not be so afraid of this interest rate. Let's just think about this with like calm minds. And I think this year, I do feel it's going to be a good year. And I think people are coming into things a little bit, like you said, it's less of a frenzy and they're not as anxious. So it's a good thing for everyone. And I'm really excited to see what 2024 brings for the Cape market.
I mean, real estate's like a train station. You just got to be ready at the platform, and the next
Right.
one's going to come in 15 minutes.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Paul.
My pleasure, Nicole. Great to see you.